On today's show, the Rockets crush the Cavaliers behind a 30-piece from Kevin Durant in just 3 quarters of action and a defense that is starting to look championship caliber. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now the #1 sports podcast network. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. On today's show, we're talking about the Rockets' 117-100 blowout win against the Cleveland Cavaliers. The final score betrays just how much of a blowout this was, because this was a 30-point blowout before the Cavaliers C-team squad started running up the score in garbage time. Kevin Durant, 30 points in just 29 minutes, didn't have to play a single second of action in the fourth. Reed Sheppard with a huge 18.8 assist, 5 steal, 3 rebound performance off of the Rockets bench. His spark was much needed in this one. The defense continues to step up. It's rounding into form. The return of Dorian Finney-Smith, the insertion of Tari Eason into the starting lineup, a lot of good things to talk about on that side of the basketball, and some new wrinkles as well. I'm going to get into all of that on today's show. First, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And as always, thanks so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being an every single dayer. 117-100 final score for you Houston Rockets against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Rockets improving to 19-10 on the season, 9-2 at home. And look, they need to keep stacking good wins. After that rough road trip, Kevin talked a little bit about it in his in-stadium interview. He talked a little bit about it post-game. You know, they were disappointed with themselves in how they played on that road trip. They lost a handful of gimmies that they should have won. And so now they're back to playing with a little bit more purpose. They're hopefully pretty motivated after some of those ugly losses. And it certainly felt that way in this game. Rockets jumped out to a 32-24 start after one. There was a point where the Cavs were ahead a little bit early in the first quarter, nothing crazy. But you had a lot of contributions early on. There was a stretch where Rockets scored like 7 straight points off of a couple threes from Tari and Jabari and a free throw from somebody else. And they took a lead 16-12, and then they never trailed after that. So not quite the same wire-to-wire victory that they had against the Lakers, but still a very impressive win. And again, I know it's a kind of a middling Cavs team, but this Cavs team still has a ton of talent. They're still very good in their own right. And Kevin Durant was flat out sensational. No Alperen Sengun for the Rockets in this game. And so Kevin Durant went to work. He had 14 first quarter points. At one point, the math might be wrong on this, because I remember tweeting it. At one point, Kevin had 12 points. The entire Cavs team had 16 points. But I believe that there was a bucket that KD made right after that where he had 14 at the same point that the Cavs had 16 points, which is kind of ridiculous to think about, that he was almost single-handedly outscoring the entire Cavaliers roster by himself in that first quarter. He finishes the game with 30 points on 11 of 17 shooting, 2 of 4 from downtown, 6 of 7 at the charity stripe, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 turnovers, plus 24 in his 29 minutes. Didn't have to play a single second of action in the fourth quarter. And that's a win for so many different reasons. One, you get another high assist performance from Kevin Durant, where for the majority of the game, don't know why, Kenny Atkinson and the Cavaliers' game plan for KD was to just guard him in single coverage. Now, that works on a lot of different players. Probably not the best idea when you're guarding Kevin Durant. Look, I mean, I get it. The Cavs are a good defensive team. They've got a lot of length, a lot of size, a lot of defenders that they are confident can switch around and move around effectively. But Kevin Durant was just going to town. There were so many possessions, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter whether it was Dean Wade, whether it was DeAndre Hunter, whether it was Evan Mobley. There was one where he straight up popped a three right in Evan Mobley's eye at the top of the key, just dancing on him a little bit on the perimeter, and then bang, hits a tough three right in the reigning DPOY's face. Most fraudulent award ever. Sorry, the award isn't fraudulent. Evan Mobley is a DPOY is fraudulent. Just want to put that out there. I think he's a great defender, not a DPOY caliber defender. Anyways, I'm going to piss off Cavs fans with that one. Speaking of pissing off Cavs fans,
release the hounds.
This is a good win. This is a quality win. Go let Locked On Cavs know that we sent you by. Go over to the YouTube comments. Tell them we said what's up from Locked On Rockets. And look, Kevin Durant, he got to his spots wherever he wanted to get to. He got to a lot of those kind of like, post up right at the nail, backing his defender down, throws his shoulder into him, and then gets to that like one-legged fadeaway over the top of the defender. They had zero answer for KD. And then when they did start to kind of like, sense, hey, maybe we should send like a second man at him, or maybe we should be a little bit more aggressive in how we're covering him, he started to pick apart the Cavs defense with his passing. So really strong all-around performance for Kevin Durant in this one. Continues to rack up the assist numbers, continues to score pretty much at will. And with no Alperen Sengun in this game, you knew that you were going to need a big night from KD to be able to pull off this win. And it was just great seeing him be so, I guess, intentional about scoring. I think that, this is one of the handful of games this season where it's felt like the Rockets offensive hierarchy felt really solid, right? Like KD was clearly the head of the snake of the offense, and everybody else kind of stepped up and did their part as well. But it started with Kevin Durant, right? And there was never a point where it felt like, oh, KD's on the floor and they're not getting him the ball, or they're not involving him in the action, or they're ignoring him or whatever. And those moments have been very frustrating so far this season. So seeing a team that was clearly on the same page, clearly understood, hey, we need to get the ball to KD. We need to run our offense through him, and good things are going to happen. Fantastic. And he gets to rest the entire fourth quarter. And after some of these really increased minutes workloads over the Rockets' most recent 6-game road trip, with a lot of losses to show for it, it's good to get Kevin Durant back on the lower end of the minute spectrum, right? Only 29 minutes played. You love that. If the Rockets can continue to take care of business against the teams that they're supposed to beat, or just run up the score on them, right, and have garbage time for most of, if not all of the fourth quarter, then that rest is going to go a long way towards preserving KD as the season moves along. But coming up, I want to talk about the non-Kevin Durant minutes from this game, the huge spark off the Rockets bench from Reed Sheppard, how the Rockets fared defensively in this one with some new defensive wrinkles as well, thanks to the additions of Tari Eason and Dorian Finney-Smith. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern Time have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new, boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The timing is perfect right before the games, right before the weekend starts. It adds extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Now, in addition to Kevin Durant being the tip of the spear for the Rockets, the head of the snake offensively in this one, there was a significant question mark of, all right, great. Kevin Durant played the entire first quarter, all 12 minutes. Rockets are up 32-24. What's going to happen in the non-Kevin Durant minutes? And that was the big question. That was the big question on my mind. And sure enough, top of the second quarter, the first handful of possessions did not look great. Like there were a couple like Aaron Holiday drives and there were some turnovers, and it was not a great first set of possessions to open up the second quarter for the Rockets. It was like, and Amin Thompson had a couple turnovers, and then there was like an Aaron Holiday bucket, and then a couple more Aaron Holiday. It was a little shaky for a minute there. Thankfully, the Rockets defense was able to lock in a little bit, give them some breathing room, give them some space, but the Rockets were able to survive, and they got a handful of contributions, like kind of across the board, right? You got a bucket from Aaron Holiday, you got a little bit from Clint Capela, you got some from Tari Eason, you got a Jabari bucket, you got an Adams bucket. Like you got enough points on the board, and the defense was solid enough to keep the lead just pushing along, right? And that realistically, that's all you need to do. As long as you don't like, this is kind of like the whole Jokic thing with Denver, right? Is when you have a star player, you're going to ideally win your minutes with the star player on the floor. And the Rockets won their minutes with Kevin Durant. They were +8 by the end of the first quarter, right? That's solid. That's great. The question was kind of what's going to happen when KD's off the floor. Who is the offense going to run through? And we saw, at first it was the Aaron Holiday show for some reason. And then we saw Amin kind of settling in a little bit. And then Reed Sheppard really started to settle in. And that's where the difference maker really kind of popped off, was Reed Sheppard settling into running the offense there. In that second quarter, he had 6 points, hit a couple threes, had 3 assists. And some of that overlapped with once Kevin Durant was back on the floor himself as well. KD wound up dropping another 9 points in that second quarter, but he only played about half the minutes there, about 6 minutes of game time in the second. But that was the important kind of like inflection point of this game, is the Rockets could have let go of the reins and given the Cavaliers a chance to jump back into the game. And then suddenly Kevin's, clocking back in and he's working from behind, or, Rockets are trailing now, whatever. And that didn't happen. So credit to all the guys, kind of that second unit group of guys that kind of were able to keep the scoreboard pushing along, and at various points defensively stay locked in and engaged enough to limit the Cavaliers in that second quarter. But easily, to me, the best stretch of this game was the third quarter, where the Rockets only allowed the Cavaliers to score 17 points in that frame. And there was a stretch where the Rockets went on, I had it in my notes, a 17-0, I believe was the actual total. Maybe I'm a little off on that. Maybe it was like 16-0 or 15-0, but I think it was 17-0 scoring run in the third quarter. And that stretch of the third was arguably some of the best defense we've seen the Rockets play all season long. It felt like last year, almost every single game the Rockets played, there was a stretch where they'd pitch an absolute shutout. Like we're talking, like there were consistently games last season where the Rockets would routinely hold a team to 20 points or fewer in a given quarter, right? You get those 15 points, 16, 18, 17 point quarters, whatever. And those would happen pretty regularly, where the Rockets would be able to completely stifle an opposing team. You'd have those stretches of a game. Sometimes you get multiple stretches in a given game, but it felt like you'd at least get one where the Rockets would hold a team scoreless for 3+, 4+, 5+ minutes of game time. And those stretches are so debilitating. They're so demoralizing for the opposing team when you can't get anything to go. When the moment, okay, you got the switch you wanted, you got Tari Eason off you, Donovan Mitchell. Oh, here's Amin Thompson. Oh, you got Amin Thompson off you. Here's Dorian Finney-Smith. Oh, you got DFS off. Here's Kevin Durant. Like, the Rockets did such an excellent job defensively in that third quarter. And then on the other end, offensively, being able to continue to run up the score, right? Ballooning that lead out to, at one point, the lead was as big as 31. Again, this was a legitimate 30-point blowout. Kenny Atkinson even said after the game, he was like, I don't say this often, or I don't feel this way often, but we lost that game after the first quarter. And like, he was just like, we didn't have the right energy. We didn't have the right intensity, yada, yada, yada. A lot of coach speak from Kenny Atkinson, but it was still really impressive to see the Rockets really take off there in the third quarter, and doing it with their defense once again. I do want to talk about some of the little wrinkles and stuff that we saw that are new, that are different in the defense. But I do want to highlight here Reed Sheppard, who put together a marvelous game, continues to stack really, really good games. 18 points on 5 of 12 shooting, was 4 of 10 from downtown, 4 of 4 at the charity stripe. He had 3 rebounds, 8 assists, 5 steals, a block, and only 1 turnover. At Ty's career highs for his assists and steals. Sorry, I was just staring at the box score. I was like, how is this kid racking up all these numbers? It's absurd. He continues to be a gigantic net positive whenever he plays in his minutes, plus 25 in 32 minutes of run, and continues to shoot the lights out of the basketball, right? Does what he does and does a great job running the offense. When Kevin Durant isn't out there, right, and Reed continues to grow in confidence, the Rockets trust him to run the show. Let's hear from Kevin Durant when he was asked about what he's seeing from Reed Sheppard after this game.
Yeah, just his confidence level. We trust him to go out there and make plays. Him and Steven have a great synergy in that pick and roll, and me and Reed, our chemistry is growing in that pick and roll, and he's just playing with confidence, man. I love what he's doing. I mean, when somebody shoots a one-legged pull-up like that, you can tell they got confidence in their game. So that was, we're going to, like I've been saying, man, we need that from Reed, and did it get you 4 steals, not foul a lot. He was in between the basketball and his man a lot, and played great for us.
Yeah, the Reed running one leg. This is what I wrote it in my notes as: running one-legged pull-up floater midi jumper ? Because I had never seen Reed pull that out of his bag. It was first time we saw that. It was also the only shot he hit inside of the arc in this game. But just really solid all-around performance from him. And I already mentioned, I usually in my notes when I'm watching a game, I have like the list of like really like standout highlight worthy plays that I want to make sure to mention on the show. And I've got 2 other ones here that both involve Reed Sheppard, because I had the Kevin Durant pull up over Evan Mobley, talked about that already, which was just filthy. But the other 2 plays that involve Reed were the Adams offensive rebound, and he pitches it out to Reed Sheppard. They're both kind of like stacked in the corner, like terrible spacing, whatever, off the offensive rebound. And Reed's trying to like figure out where to go with the ball next. And Kevin Durant cuts to the basket, and Reed just hits him with the pass right through the middle of the defense, and KD dunks it home, a wide open dunk. And I might be wrong, but that might have been the capper on that Rockets like 15-0, 17-0 run, whatever, in the third quarter, because that immediately prompted a timeout from Kenny Atkinson. And then when he came back, he got teed up. So that was a fantastic play, right? Any play that forces the opposing team to call a timeout is a great play in my eyes. And then the other one was near the top of the 4th. Reed got his, I think they credited him this with his 5th steal on this play. But top of the 4th, he gets a poke away from behind after somebody on the Cavs got an offensive rebound. And he just kind of like slipped behind the guy and tipped the ball away, recovered it. He ignites the fast break. Amin Thompson is already running with him. He pitches the basketball ahead to Amin, who gets a breakaway slam. Those steals, those opportunities from the Rockets to be able to get out and really run in transition are so invaluable for this team. I mean, they only wound up having, they had 26 points scored off of 15 Cavs turnovers. And this is a direct result of like the Tari Eason effect, I'm going to call it, because having him out there, the Rockets defense they are so much more chaotic and energetic, and you see it, right? Again, I've talked about this before. Reed Sheppard, Tari Eason, very similar types of defenders in that they are defensive playmakers. They create opportunities to get out and run by forcing those turnovers and by igniting fast break opportunities, which when you have guys like Amin Thompson, like Tari Eason, like Reed Sheppard, who can get out and run and be lethal in transition, it's fantastic. Here's the stat that I was digging for this and kind of vamping a little bit, so sorry if you noticed. The Rockets had 11 steals against the Cavaliers. They had 10 against the Lakers on Christmas Day. after not recording 10 plus in any of their previous 8 games. The Rockets also scored 20 plus points off turnovers in each of the past 2 games after doing so only once in the 7 games prior. So forcing turnovers and scoring offset turnovers, really getting back to some of their transition game, playing a little bit faster. That's the Tari Eason and to a lesser degree, the Reed Sheppard effect at play. So loved what we saw to Reed Sheppard in this one. Continues to grow with confidence day by day. Coming up, I do want to talk about some of the defensive wrinkles as well as final thoughts from this Rockets win against the Cavaliers. We're going to get there in just one moment. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Remember, the best way to help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing, and then like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. The comments help us out a ton, guys. I really mean it. So give me your thoughts on the game in the YouTube comments. I wanted to specifically talk about something that I noticed with the Rockets defense, in particular these past couple games, but it was even more evident here against the Cavaliers. There are possessions, right? And we've seen this all season long. When Reed Sheppard is out there, opposing teams start to try and hunt Reed Sheppard because individually, man-to-man defense, Reed Sheppard is a defensive liability. He is. That's why teams try to pick on him. He's gotten better at holding up and manning up and D'ing up on his own, but he also still has to, as kind of a last resort, right, gamble sometimes, right? He makes a lot of really impressive recovery plays after being beat, but there are also lots of moments where he gets beat and then that recovery play doesn't matter. It doesn't, he tries, he hustles. It's not for lack of effort. It's just sometimes he's smaller and he gets, abused by opposing teams occasionally. So in this one, which, speak of the devil, he actually had a great recovery block against Darius Garland, the call that got overturned, the block from behind on the three-pointer. Totally clean block. They ruled it a foul on the floor. Ime challenged it. The Rockets with their challenges, it's night and day different, man. They are so much better this year. I don't know if they just gave the responsibility to somebody else on the bench or they just got better at looking at the film, or they got a faster, maybe they upgraded their internet speed on the iPad and they got a better quality. I don't know what it is. Maybe they're looking at a 4K iPad now. Who knows? Whatever it is. I love the fact that the Rockets are so on top of the game with their challenges. They lead the NBA in correct challenge calls this season. So one thing that I noticed at various points throughout this game is there was one possession where Reed got switched onto Donovan Mitchell and was waving, looking for, hey, where's my help? Because what the Rockets have been doing is when teams are looking to aggressively hunt Reed, they are relying on the other, better defenders on the floor to take that pressure off of Reed, right? And it's a little bit more work for all 5 guys on the floor because then you're scrambling and you're in this kind of blitz and recover kind of defensive mode where we saw it a bunch of times where, whether it was Garland or whether it was Mitchell, one of them would try to get Reed on an island, right? Get him isolated. And instead, what the Rockets would do is they would blitz that action. And then it was up to once that player picks up his dribble, whether it was Mitchell, Garland, whoever else, then it was up to Reed to rotate and get back in the picture to whoever he needs to get to, right, and close out on. And it didn't work perfectly every single time, but there were a lot of moments where the Cavs were legitimately trying to hunt Reed Sheppard on defense, and the Rockets just didn't allow it. They were like, no, we're going to jump out. We're going to send 2 to the ball at you. And then you're going to have a very brief window for a 4-on-3 play. And there were a couple of them that resulted in some couple made threes here or there. A driving basket, what have you. But a lot of the times, there were moments where, Reed would then recover and you'd have the next defender would be Tari Eason, right? Who gets to the next man, who gets the release valve pass from, say, Donovan Mitchell, right? And then Tari's checking the next guy. And then you have, the next defender rotate over, Jabari rotates over, or, Adams or Clint Capela has to run out for a closeout on a 3-pointer, something like that. And that's a new little defensive wrinkle that it feels like the Rockets have added to try and cover for Reed Sheppard. And one thing that this team did a lot of last year, right, and that they did more of as the season progressed, is they got really aggressive with some of their coverages, specifically on the perimeter and even involving Alperen Sengun, right? They would do some really aggressive stuff out at the perimeter where they would let Alperen Sengun jump out on ball handlers and force a guy to pick up his dribble. And they played defense with a lot more aggressive coverages. last year. And that's what led to some of those quarters that we were talking about earlier, where they would hold teams, scoreless for 3, 4, 5+ minutes, because when you play that suffocating brand of defense, one, it is a lot more taxing. It's a lot more, you demand a lot more out of your team when you're playing aggressive defense, right? It takes it out of you. It's not easy to play that style of defense. But when you do, you give yourself so much room for error, because when you're playing defense like that, you don't have to rely on just your offense to win games, right? And the fact that the Rockets offense has looked as good as it has this season, despite some of the, the clunkiness and the warts that it still has, if the Rockets can coast, can get themselves back to I actually don't know where it's at like right now, but just if they can consistently play at a top 5 defense and top 5 offensive level, but not the top 5 defense where they were just beating up on bad teams like they were earlier this season, but like the top 5 defense where they have stretches like this against the Cavaliers where they're able to just completely close out a team and prevent them from scoring for significant stretches over the course of a given game. This team is going to be incredibly hard to beat, right? We're starting to see a little bit of the identity, the vision for this team starting to come together. Dorian Finney-Smith, a really big part of that, right? He had his debut against the Lakers. Didn't do a whole bunch against the Lakers. I'm not going to say he was out there getting cardio, but the stat sheet didn't look too favorably on him. In this game, he hit his first bucket as a member of the Houston Rockets. He also got swatted by DeAndre Hunter on a 3 he got handed a grenade. It was unfair. But DFS, right? Getting his legs under him, the timing will get back right. Understandably, it's only his second game back, right? He's still super rusty. Down the line, even being handed a grenade like that, right? He probably would have sidestepped DeAndre Hunter, right? Done a little sidestep dribble, let him go sailing past him, and still had plenty of time to get the shot off. DFS is such an important depth piece for this Rockets team. And when the Rockets are able to put all of that length and all those plus level defenders alongside a Reed Sheppard, then you're able to start doing some of those different kinds of defensive schemes. Then you're able to start experimenting a little bit and having that additional support out there. It's a lot harder to expect Josh Okogie and Aaron Holiday to be the guys covering for a Reed Sheppard defensive liability than it is for Tari Eason and Amin Thompson and DFS to be the guys on the back line covering and playing a more aggressive defensive scheme to make up for the defensive liability or the guy that the opposing team is trying to hunt defensively and take advantage of. So really liked those handful of wrinkles. And there's still going to be moments where there's some communication, right? Because I mentioned the very first one, right? It was Reed on an island against Donovan Mitchell, and he was kind of like motioning. I think Tari was the closest like good defender, and I think he was kind of motioning for Tari to like come up and like help trap Mitchell or like help him in some capacity so that he wasn't just on his own. And I think Mitchell wound up like driving the ball in and getting like a floater off of it or something. I don't know. One of his few buckets that he actually got because the Rockets held Mitchell to 16 points on 7 of 17 shooting. Just rough night at the office for Donovan Mitchell. Jalen Tyson popped off though for 23 points on 10 of 20 shooting, but he did a lot of that damage in garbage time because the Rockets, again, they let the Cavs run up the score in garbage time, 37-27 in that fourth quarter. Again, the final score does not do this game justice, but the Rockets continue to shoot the lights out of the basketball, 46% shooting from deep in this one, 16 of 35. And they're steadily creeping up a little bit with their volume of threes, right? And that's been another kind of quiet storyline here is the Rockets are doing a better job generating those threes. They're not relying as much on like this like smash and grab offensive identity. Now, some of that is, due to not having Alperen Sengun out there, right? He's obviously their biggest paint weapon that they have. Speaking of not having Alperen Sengun out there, credit Steven Adams and Clint Capela for filling in admirably. 9 points and 8 rebounds for Steve-O in the middle of this game. Had an assist, had a couple steals, and then Clint Capela off the bench. Like that's such an elite. Outside of the fact that like Nikola Jokic exists because he's doing a lot of heavy lifting as like obviously the best in like Jokic and then Valanciunas. I don't even know who the Nuggets like third string center is, but the Rockets have to have like a top 3 center rotation in the NBA between Sengun, Adams, and then Clint Capela. There is no drop off. Like when they go from Alperen Sengun to Steven Adams, he's such an effect. It could be a starter for most of the teams in this league. And then even Clint Capela, their third string center, could arguably be a starter for certain teams in the association. Clint in this one, 8 points, had a steal, had a couple blocks, blocked Evan Mobley at the rim. God. Kevin Durant also blocked Evan Mobley. I just want to point that out. But Evan Mobley got the ball right back and dunked it, so I can't really parade that one around too much. But overall, quality win for this Rockets squad. They keep stacking good games. That's back-to-back wins against quality opponents. And they've got a relatively easy schedule coming up here, so hopefully going to make up some ground after losing some ground in the Western Conference standings with that little bit of a skid that they went on. Currently, at the time that I'm recording this, the Rockets are 4th in the Western Conference, sitting at 19-10. They're tied with the Lakers technically, but because they took this first meetup between the two teams, they have the head-to-head tiebreaker, 1-zip. Thunder sitting at 26-5, Spurs 23-8, Nuggets 22-9. So Rockets got some ground to make up, but they've got a pretty soft kind of cupcakey schedule coming up here, and they'll be back top 3, top 2 in no time. So with that, I want your thoughts from this Rockets-Cavs game. Give me all your thoughts in the YouTube comments. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.